The waitress accidentally sent her resume to the arrogant billionaire. The next day he shocked her with his reply. Before we begin, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from, and at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. She thought she was just applying for another job, anything to escape the long nights of juggling trays, rude customers, and tips that barely covered rent. But one small mistake changed everything. Instead of landing in the inbox of a restaurant manager, her resume arrived in the office of a billionaire CEO, known for his arrogance and ruthless ways. Everyone expected him to laugh, to ignore her, or to mock her ambition. But what he did next left her stunned, and set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. Meet Elena Rodriguez. At 26, she'd been wearing the same black apron for 3 years at Murphy's Diner, a place where dreams go to die and coffee goes cold. Her feet ached constantly, her back screamed from carrying heavy trays, and her bank account screamed even louder. But Elena wasn't just any waitress. She had a bachelor's degree in business. Unfinished, yes, but still hanging on her bedroom wall like a ghost of what could have been. Student loans had forced her to drop out senior year, and now she served pancakes to people who looked right through her. That Tuesday night, exhaustion weighed heavier than usual. She'd worked a double shift, dealt with a customer who complained about everything from the temperature of his soup to the angle of his napkin, and received exactly $12 in tips for 14 hours of work. Her laptop screen glowed at 2:47 a.m. as she scrolled through job listings. Assistant manager, downtown restaurant group, the posting read. Better hours, actual benefits, a chance to use her brain instead of just her feet. Her fingers trembled from fatigue as she typed the cover letter. "I know I'm just a waitress," she began, then deleted it. Too weak. "I have 3 years of customer service experience and understand the challenges of restaurant operations from the ground up." The email address, hiringadowntowngroup.com. Simple enough, but tired eyes betray us all. In her exhaustion, Elena's finger slipped. Instead of hiringadowntowngroup.com, she added a dot and hit hiringoutdowntown.group.com. The email sailed into cyberspace, carrying her hopes toward downtown.group.com, the corporate domain of Grayson Enterprises. The same Grayson Enterprises owned by Alexander Grayson, the 34-year-old billionaire who'd built an empire on real estate, technology, and a reputation for crushing anyone who dared waste his time. Elena closed her laptop and collapsed onto her threadbare couch, unaware that her mistake had just landed her resume on the desk of the most powerful and reportedly heartless man in the city. But sometimes the biggest mistakes lead to the most extraordinary changes. Alexander Grayson never read his own emails anymore. That's what assistants were for. But at 6:15 a.m., 3 hours before his empire officially awakened, he sat alone in his corner office on the 42nd floor, reviewing overnight reports. The city sprawled beneath him like a chessboard where he moved the pieces. His phone buzzed. "Mr. Grayson, you have an unusual email that bypassed your filters," his night security manager reported. "Should I delete it?" "What kind of unusual?" "A job application. Somehow made it through to your personal domain." Alexander's jaw tightened. His email address was more secure than government databases. How did some random applicant breach his systems? "Forward it to me." The email appeared on his screen moments later. Subject line: application for assistant manager position. His first instinct was to delete it, but something made him pause. The sender: Elena Rodriguez. The timestamp: 2:47 a.m. Who applies for jobs at 3 in the morning? "Dear hiring manager," it began. No fancy letterhead, no corporate buzzwords, just honest words from someone who clearly had no idea where her email had landed. "I have 3 years of customer service experience and understand restaurant operations from the ground up. I know what it's like to work when your feet are screaming, when difficult customers test your patience, and when you have to smile even when you're breaking inside." Alexander found himself reading further. "I'm not the candidate with the perfect resume. I dropped out of college senior year because I couldn't afford to continue. I've been a waitress for 3 years, and I know that might not sound impressive to you, but I've learned things they don't teach in business school. I've learned that respect isn't given, it's earned, that hard work matters more than connections, and that sometimes the people who've struggled the most are the ones who fight the hardest. He leaned back in his leather chair. When was the last time someone had written to him with such raw honesty? Her resume was attached, no fancy formatting, no exaggerations, just facts. Murphy's Diner, 2021 present, consistently maintained customer satisfaction during high-volume shifts, trained new staff, managed cash handling with zero discrepancies. But it was the small details that caught his attention. Fluent in Spanish and English, volunteer literacy tutor on weekends, dean's list before financial circumstances required withdrawal from university. This woman was brilliant, and completely unaware that she'd just sent her life story to a man worth $12 billion. Alexander had received thousands of applications over the years. MBA graduates from Harvard and Wharton, each one polished and perfect, each one utterly forgettable. But Elena Rodriguez, waitress from Murphy's Diner, had written something that made him pause. "I'm not asking for charity," her letter continued. "I'm asking for a chance to prove that someone's worth isn't measured by their current job title, but by their willingness to give everything they have." For 15 minutes, Alexander Grayson, the man who fired executives for being 5 minutes late, sat in silence, reading the words of a waitress who had no idea she was about to change everything. Then he did something that would shock everyone who knew him. He hit reply. Elena's phone buzzed at 7:23 a.m., jolting her from the deepest sleep she'd had in weeks. One new email. Still groggy, she assumed it was another automated rejection. She'd grown numb to them. "Thank you for your interest, but we've decided to move forward with other candidates." But the sender line made her heart stop. Alexander Grayson, CEO, Grayson Enterprises. Her blood turned to ice. She knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. The billionaire who owned half the downtown skyline. The man newspapers called ruthless and untouchable. Why was Alexander Grayson emailing her? With trembling fingers, she opened the message. "Ms. Rodriguez, your application reached me by accident, or perhaps by fate. I've read thousands of resumes from Harvard MBAs, Wharton graduates, and Silicon Valley executives. Each one perfectly crafted to impress, each one utterly hollow. Then I read yours. You wrote about earning respect, not demanding it, about understanding struggle, about people who fought the hardest being worth the most. Most people in my position would have deleted your email without a second thought. But your words reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten. That real strength isn't born in boardrooms. It's forged in places like Murphy's Diner, during double shifts when your feet are screaming and your spirit refuses to break. I'm not offering you the assistant manager position you applied for. I'm offering you something else entirely. Report to the 42nd floor of Grayson Tower tomorrow at 9 a.m. Ask for me personally. Wear whatever makes you feel strongest, not what you think impresses billionaires. You said someone's worth isn't measured by their current job title. Tomorrow, we'll see if you're ready to prove that. Don't disappoint me, Elena Rodriguez. Alexander Grayson." Elena read the email 3 times before the words sank in. Alexander Grayson, the Alexander Grayson, wanted to see her. Not for the restaurant job she'd applied for, but for something unnamed, something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She never expected his response, and neither will you. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens when she enters his world. Her hands shook as she reread the line. Don't disappoint me, Elena Rodriguez. How had her late-night mistake led to this moment? What did he want from a waitress who couldn't even send an email to the right address? But beneath her terror was something else, a spark she'd almost forgotten existed. For the first time in 3 years, someone saw potential in her. Not just her ability to balance plates and smile through insults, but something deeper. The most powerful man in the city was giving her a chance. The question was she brave enough to take it? Tomorrow would change everything. She just didn't know how much. Elena stood outside Grayson Tower at 8:47 a.m., staring up at the glass monument that scraped the clouds. She'd chosen her best outfit, a navy blazer she'd bought for job interviews 2 years ago, and black pants that hid the fact that her shoes were held together with super glue. Not exactly billionaire meeting attire, but it made her feel stronger, just as he'd suggested. The lobby was a cathedral of marble and steel. Business executives in $1,000 suits moved like sharks through water, each one radiating the confidence that came with never doubting their place in the world. Elena approached the reception desk, her heart hammering against her ribs. "I'm here to see Alexander Grayson," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The receptionist looked up with practiced politeness that quickly shifted to confusion. Her eyes traveled from Elena's discount blazer to her nervous smile. "Do you have an appointment?" "Elena Rodriguez. He asked me to come at 9. The woman's fingers flew across her keyboard. Her expression changed from confusion to disbelief. Yes, you're on his calendar, but are you sure that I'm in the right place?" Elena finished. "Trust me, I'm asking myself the same question." The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt like ascending to another dimension. Each floor that passed took her further from the world she knew, the world of split shifts and shared tips, into something that felt impossible. The doors opened to reveal a workspace that looked like it belonged in a movie. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the entire city. Employees moved with quiet efficiency, their conversations conducted in hushed, important tones. "Ms. Rodriguez?" A woman in an impeccable gray suit approached. "I'm Rebecca Chen, Mr. Grayson's executive assistant. He's waiting for you." Rebecca's tone was professional, but Elena caught the curiosity in her eyes. Everyone here was wondering the same thing. What was a waitress doing in the billionaire's lair? They walked past conference rooms where million-dollar deals were being negotiated, past offices where people Elena's age commanded salaries larger than her lifetime earnings. She felt every stare, heard every whispered conversation that stopped when she passed. "Is that her? The waitress? What could he possibly want with—" Rebecca stopped at massive oak doors. "Mr. Grayson doesn't usually take meetings like this," she said quietly. "Whatever brought you here, it must be extraordinary." The doors opened, and Elena stepped into Alexander Grayson's office. If the lobby was impressive, this was overwhelming. The space was larger than her entire apartment, with artwork that probably cost more than she'd earn in a decade. And there, behind a desk that looked like it belonged to a head of state, sat the man who'd changed her life with a single email. Alexander Grayson was younger than she'd expected, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see through everything. He wore his power like a perfectly tailored suit, natural, effortless, and slightly intimidating. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said, standing. "You came." "You asked me to," she replied, proud that her voice didn't shake. Most people would have assumed it was a prank or a mistake. Elena met his gaze. "I've made enough mistakes lately. I figured I'd see where this one leads." For the first time since she'd known his name, Alexander Grayson smiled. "Good answer. Now let's see if you're ready for what comes next." Alexander gestured to the chair across from his desk, leather that probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent. "Tell me," he began, settling back into his own chair. "What do you think I want from you?" Elena had spent the entire night wondering the same thing. "Honestly, I have no idea. You could have any MBA graduate in the country. Why would you want a college dropout who serves pancakes for a living?" "Because MBA graduates tell me what they think I want to hear. You told me the truth." He leaned forward, his intense gaze never leaving her face. "Your email wasn't trying to impress me. It was just real." "So this is about novelty? The billionaire wants to meet the working-class girl?" Alexander's jaw tightened. "Is that what you think this is?" "I don't know what to think," Elena admitted. "Nothing about this makes sense." He stood and walked to the window overlooking the city. 3 months ago, I fired my head of customer relations. Know why?" Elena shook her head. "Because she suggested we cut costs by reducing customer service staff. She had charts, projections, data showing how we could maximize profits, but she'd never actually served a customer in her life. He turned back to Elena. You have. So you want me to work in customer service? I want you to revolutionize it. The words hung in the air between them. I'm offering you a position as Director of Customer Experience. Salary of $200,000 a year, full benefits, and the authority to rebuild our entire customer service model. Elena's world tilted. $200,000. She made barely $25,000 at the diner. That's impossible, she whispered. Why? Because I'm nobody. I'm a waitress with an unfinished degree and debt I can't pay off. You're someone who understands what real customer service looks like. Someone who's been on the receiving end of corporate indifference. His voice grew passionate. Do you know what my company's biggest weakness is? We've forgotten that our customers are people, not profit margins. Elena stared at him. You're serious. Dead serious, but here's the catch. You have to earn it. Of course there was a catch. I'm giving you 2 weeks. You'll work alongside our current customer service team, shadow our operations, and then present your vision for transformation. If you can prove you deserve this position, it's yours. And if I can't, then you go back to Murphy's Diner, and I admit I was wrong about you. The challenge hung between them like a bridge she could either cross or watch burn. Why are you really doing this? Elena asked. For a moment, Alexander's carefully controlled expression slipped. She glimpsed something raw beneath the polished surface. Loneliness, maybe, or the weight of expectations that never stopped crushing down. Because I built this empire by believing in people others overlooked, he said quietly. My first business partner was a kid from the projects who'd been rejected by every bank in the city. My head of technology started as a janitor who taught herself coding at night. Success isn't about where you start, it's about how far you're willing to climb. Elena felt something shift inside her chest. This wasn't charity. It wasn't a game. It was the chance she'd been fighting for her entire life. What happens during these 2 weeks? You'll have an office, an assistant, access to our systems. You'll attend meetings, review policies, talk to customers and employees. You'll see how we operate from the inside. And everyone will know I'm the waitress who doesn't belong here. Everyone will know you're the woman who earned her place here. His eyes met hers with unwavering certainty. The question is, do you believe that? Elena thought about the 3 years of doubled shifts, condescending customers, and dreams deferred. About the college degree hanging on her wall like a reminder of failure. About every person who'd ever looked at her apron and assumed that was all she'd ever be. I'll do it, she said. Alexander smiled. Not the polished CEO smile, but something genuine and warm. Rebecca will set you up with everything you need. Your office is down the hall. I have an office? You have a chance, Elena Rodriguez. What you do with it is up to you. As she stood to leave, he added, one more thing. The people here will test you. They'll assume you don't belong, that you're in over your head. Prove them wrong. Elena walked toward the door, her heart pounding with terror and possibility in equal measure. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a woman with 2 weeks to change her life forever. Elena's first week at Grayson Enterprises felt like living inside a hurricane. Her office, her actual office, had floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that made her dizzy, but the beautiful space couldn't shield her from the whispers that followed her through every corridor. Did you see her at the executive meeting yesterday, taking notes like a college freshman? I heard she doesn't even have an MBA. What was Alexander thinking? Give it 2 weeks. She'll be gone. But Elena pushed through, because each day brought discoveries that made her blood boil. She sat in on customer service calls where representatives read from scripts that sounded like robots. She watched managers dismiss complaints as customer education opportunities. She saw surveys showing plummeting satisfaction scores that executives explained away with corporate buzzwords. The customers weren't numbers on a spreadsheet. They were real people being failed by policies created in boardrooms by people who'd never worked a day in service. On Thursday evening, Elena was reviewing complaint files when Alexander appeared in her doorway. "Working late?" he asked, loosening his tie. "These files are incredible," she said, not looking up. "Do you know that Mrs. Patterson from Queens called 17 times about a billing error, and each representative told her something different? And she's been a customer for 12 years. She spent 4 hours of her day trying to get help that should have taken 5 minutes. Elena finally met his eyes. "We're not just failing her, we're insulting her." Alexander stepped into her office, closing the door behind him. The sudden intimacy of the space, just the two of them as the building emptied around them, made Elena acutely aware of how he moved, how his presence filled the room. "What would you have done differently?" he asked. "Empowered the first representative to actually solve her problem instead of transferring her to 6 different departments." Elena stood, her passion overriding her nervousness. "Your employees want to help, but your system won't let them." "Show me." Elena pulled up her laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "I've been mapping customer journeys. Look at this." She moved closer to the screen, and Alexander stepped behind her chair to see better. She caught the scent of his cologne, felt the warmth radiating from his body. "Focus, Elena. The average customer gets transferred 3.2 times before reaching someone who can help them," she continued, trying to ignore how close he was standing. "We're measuring success by call duration instead of problem resolution." "Interesting." His voice was closer to her ear than she expected. "What's your solution?" Elena turned in her chair to face him, suddenly realizing how little space existed between them. Alexander's dark eyes held hers, and for a moment she forgot about customer service metrics entirely. She started, then caught herself. "I think you should sit down. This presentation will take a while." He smiled, that genuine smile she was beginning to recognize. "Are you ordering me around in my own building, Ms. Rodriguez?" "Would that be a problem, Mr. Grayson?" "Not at all. I find it refreshing." As Alexander settled into the chair across from her, Elena realized something had shifted between them. The dynamic was no longer strictly boss and employee. There was electricity in their exchanges, a mutual respect that felt dangerous and thrilling. She spent the next hour walking him through her analysis, her recommendations, her vision for treating customers like human beings instead of profit opportunities. Alexander listened intently, asking sharp questions that challenged her thinking and revealed the brilliant mind behind his empire. "You want to completely restructure our customer service model," he said when she finished. "Yes. It would cost millions to implement. It would save millions in customer retention. My board will think you're insane. Your board doesn't know what it's like to wait on hold for an hour just to be told their problem isn't your department's responsibility." Alexander laughed, a rich, genuine sound that transformed his entire face. "You're absolutely right. So you'll consider it? I'll do better than that." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, bringing them closer together. "I want you to present this to the board next Friday." Elena's heart stopped. "The board? Alexander, I can't." "You can. You just spent an hour dismantling our entire customer service philosophy and rebuilding it from scratch. If that's not board-level thinking, I don't know what is. They'll eat me alive. They'll try." His eyes met hers with fierce intensity. "But I'll be right there with you." The promise in his voice sent warmth through Elena's chest. This wasn't just professional anymore. Alexander Grayson was putting his reputation on the line for her. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why are you really doing this?" Alexander was quiet for a long moment, his gaze shifting to the city lights beyond her window. "Because you remind me why I started building this company in the first place. Before the money, before the power, I wanted to create something that mattered." When he looked back at her, something vulnerable flickered in his expression. "Somewhere along the way I forgot that. You're helping me remember." The air between them felt charged, full of possibilities neither of them had named yet. Elena realized she was falling for more than just the opportunity he'd given her. She was falling for the man behind the billionaire mask. Friday morning arrived like an executioner's blade. Elena stood in the bathroom mirror of her tiny apartment, trying to steady her trembling hands as she applied lipstick. In 3 hours, she would face the Grayson Enterprises board of directors, 12 of the most powerful executives in the city, and attempt to convince them that a waitress from Murphy's Diner deserved to revolutionize their company. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Maya. "Girl, you're trending on corporate Twitter. Waitress Gate is everywhere." Elena's stomach dropped. She opened the app to find screenshots of her LinkedIn profile, photos from her old Murphy's Diner uniform, and speculation about her relationship with Alexander. The comments were brutal. Gold digger spotted. From pancakes to boardrooms, this won't end well. Alexander Grayson has officially lost his mind. But it was the leaked email that made her blood freeze. Someone had forwarded her original job application, the one with the typo, to gossip blogs. Her mistake was now entertainment for thousands of strangers. Elena sank onto her couch, the weight of humiliation crushing her chest. How could she walk into that boardroom knowing the entire business world was watching her fail? Her phone rang. Alexander's name appeared on the screen. "Elena, I know you've seen the news. The whole city is laughing at me," she whispered. "The whole city is about to watch you prove them wrong." His voice was steady, confident. "Don't let their fear of change distract you from your mission." "Alexander, maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I should—" "Elena Rodriguez." His tone shifted, becoming the voice of a man who'd built an empire through sheer will. "You are the most qualified person I know to fix our customer service problems. Not because of your education or your connections, but because you understand what it means to serve people. Don't you dare let corporate cowards steal that from you." Elena closed her eyes, drawing strength from his words. "What if I fail?" "Then you fail fighting for something that matters. But Elena, you won't fail. I believe in you." After hanging up, Elena chose her armor carefully. The navy suit from her first day, her mother's pearl earrings for courage, and the confidence she'd built serving customers who looked right through her. If the business world wanted to see a waitress, she'd show them what waitresses were really made of. The boardroom was a temple of intimidation, mahogany table gleaming under crystal chandeliers, oil paintings of company founders glowering from gilded frames. 12 faces turned toward Elena as she entered, their expressions ranging from curious to openly hostile. "Gentlemen," Alexander began, "I'd like you to meet Elena Rodriguez, our candidate for Director of Customer Experience." Richard Blackstone, the silver-haired board chairman, didn't bother hiding his smirk. "The waitress, how unconventional. Ms. Rodriguez has prepared a presentation on restructuring our customer service approach," Alexander continued smoothly. Elena connected her laptop to the projector with hands that only trembled slightly. She'd rehearsed this moment 100 times, but nothing had prepared her for the weight of their skepticism. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice finding its strength, "you're losing money every day because you've forgotten something crucial. Your customers are human beings." She clicked to her first slide, a photo of Mrs. Patterson from Queens. "This is Margaret Patterson, 73 years old, retired teacher, customer for 12 years. Last month she called 17 times to resolve a billing error. 17 times. Each representative gave her different information, transferred her to wrong departments, and ultimately made her feel like her business didn't matter." Blackstone leaned back in his chair. "Ms. Rodriguez, with respect, customer complaints are inevitable in any large operation." "With respect, Mr. Blackstone," Elena interrupted, her restaurant experience kicking in. "Margaret Patterson spent her career teaching children to believe in fairness. When your company failed her 17 times, you didn't just lose a customer, you broke her faith in the system." The room fell silent. Elena had just interrupted the board chairman. In corporate culture, this was suicide. But she pressed on. Your current customer service model measures success by call duration, not problem resolution. Representatives are rewarded for getting customers off the phone quickly, not for actually helping them. You've created a system that punishes empathy and rewards indifference. She clicked through slides showing customer satisfaction scores, retention rates, and the true cost of failed service interactions. The solution isn't complicated, it's revolutionary. Empower your representatives to solve problems on the first call. Measure success by customer satisfaction, not call time. Train your team to see customers as people, not interruptions. Board member after board member attacked her proposal. Too expensive, too risky, too idealistic. Ms. Rodriguez, Blackstone said coldly, your background in food service hardly qualifies you to understand the complexities of corporate customer relations. Elena felt the familiar sting of dismissal, the same tone she'd heard from customers who snapped fingers instead of using her name. You're absolutely right, she said quietly. I don't understand corporate customer relations, but I understand what it feels like to be treated like I don't matter. She turned to face the entire board. I understand what it's like to work double shifts and still get lectured about not smiling enough. I understand what it's like to have someone complain about their food being cold while they spent 20 minutes ignoring me trying to take their order. I understand what it's like to be seen as just the help. Her voice grew stronger. And that's exactly why your company needs me. Because every customer you fail feels exactly the way I felt when people looked through me like I was invisible. The difference is, I know how to make people feel seen. Everything she worked for is crumbling, just like it might for you tomorrow. Subscribe to see how she fights back. The boardroom erupted. Half the executives spoke at once, voices raising in heated debate. Some demanded to know why Alexander had wasted their time with this experiment. Others questioned whether emotional appeals belonged in business strategy. Through the chaos, Elena caught Alexander's eye. He nodded slightly, a signal of support that steadied her racing heart. But Blackstone wasn't finished. Ms. Rodriguez, your passion is unnotable, but passion doesn't qualify you to manage a multi-million-dollar department. What happens when you make a mistake that costs us millions? What happens when your inexperience destroys relationships with key clients? The question hung in the air like a sword. Elena realized this was the moment that would define everything, not just her career, but her worth as a human being who dared to dream beyond her circumstances. She thought of every customer who'd treated her like furniture, every person who'd assumed her limitations based on her uniform, every dream she'd deferred because someone else decided she wasn't qualified enough. Mr. Blackstone, she said, her voice steady as steel, I've already made the biggest mistake of my career. I sent my resume to the wrong email address. A few board members chuckled, but Elena continued. That mistake brought me here. It gave me the chance to show you that qualification isn't just about degrees or pedigree. It's about understanding the people you serve. I may not have an MBA, but I have something you can't teach in business school. I know what it means to fight for respect every single day. The room fell completely silent. Elena gathered her materials, her hands steady now. You can hire another consultant with perfect credentials who will give you predictable results. Or you can take a chance on someone who will transform your company because she knows what your customers are really feeling. She looked directly at Alexander. Thank you for believing I was worth the risk. I hope someday the rest of your board will too. As Elena walked toward the door, she heard Blackstone's voice behind her. Ms. Rodriguez, the board will deliberate and inform you of our decision. Elena paused at the threshold. Mr. Blackstone, with respect, I already know your decision. The question is whether you're ready to make the right one. She left 12 of the most powerful executives in the city sitting in stunned silence, wondering if they'd just witnessed brilliance or career suicide. Outside the boardroom, Elena's composure finally cracked. She'd either just secured her future or destroyed it completely. There was no middle ground left. Elena didn't go home after the boardroom confrontation. She couldn't face her empty apartment, couldn't bear to see more social media commentary about her spectacular rise and potential fall. Instead, she found herself on the roof garden of Grayson Tower, a hidden sanctuary 43 floors above the chaos. The city sprawled beneath her like scattered diamonds, each light representing dreams being built or broken. She'd been sitting on a bench for an hour when footsteps approached behind her. "I figured I'd find you here." Alexander's voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. Elena didn't turn around. "Come to deliver the bad news personally?" "The board hasn't voted yet." He sat beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body despite the cool evening air. "They're deliberating." "You mean they're figuring out how to fire me without looking completely heartless on social media?" Alexander was quiet for a long moment. When Elena finally looked at him, she was startled by the exhaustion in his eyes, not just from today, but something deeper, older. "Can I tell you something?" he asked. "It's your roof. 20 years ago, I was sleeping in my car in this city." The words hung between them like a confession. "I had $17, a business plan I'd written on napkins, and absolutely no one who believed I could succeed." Elena turned to face him fully. This wasn't the billionaire CEO speaking. This was someone else entirely. "My father was a construction worker who died when I was 16. Heart attack on the job site. My mother worked 3 cleaning jobs to keep us afloat, but it wasn't enough. I aged out of foster care with nothing but anger and a desperate need to prove that where you start doesn't determine where you finish." Alexander. "My first business partner found me sleeping in a parking garage. Richard Chen, Rebecca's father. He was an immigrant who'd been rejected by every bank in the city for a small business loan. 2 outcasts with impossible dreams." Alexander's smile was sad and proud simultaneously. "We started our company in the basement of a building scheduled for demolition." Elena felt her chest tighten. "What happened to Richard?" "Cancer took him 8 years ago. He never lived to see what we built together." Alexander's voice caught. "The day he died, he made me promise something. He said, 'Alexander, don't let success make you forget what it feels like to be invisible. The world has enough powerful men who've forgotten their humanity.'" The pieces clicked into place for Elena. "That's why you hired his daughter as your assistant. Rebecca is brilliant. She could run her own company. But she stays because she believes in what we're building, what her father started." Alexander looked out over the city. "I built this empire to prove that worth isn't determined by wealth or connections. But somewhere along the way, I started surrounding myself with people who'd never known struggle. I started forgetting why any of this mattered. Until a waitress accidentally sent you her resume. Until a woman reminded me that real strength comes from serving others, not commanding them." He turned to meet her eyes. "Elena, you didn't just impress me in that boardroom today. You terrified them. Because you represented something they've spent their careers avoiding. Accountability to the people they claim to serve." Elena felt tears building behind her eyes. "But I still failed. I interrupted the board chairman. I challenged their entire business model. I was everything they expected. Emotional, unprofessional, in over my head. You were everything I hoped you'd be. Honest, passionate, and unwilling to compromise your values for their approval." Alexander shifted closer to her on the bench. "Elena, I need to tell you something else." The intensity in his voice made her pulse quicken. "That night when I read your resume, I didn't just see potential. I saw myself. Someone fighting to be seen, to be valued, to prove that circumstances don't define capability." His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "But today, watching you stand up to 12 of the most intimidating executives in the country, I saw something more." "What did you see?" "I saw the woman I'm falling in love with." The words hit Elena like lightning. Alexander Grayson, billionaire, CEO, untouchable force of nature, was vulnerable, open, looking at her like she held his future in her hands. "Alexander, I know the timing is terrible, I know there are power dynamics and complications and 1,000 reasons why this is impossible. His thumb traced across her knuckles. But Elena, you've changed everything for me. Not just how I see business, but how I see myself. You've reminded me that success without compassion is just expensive emptiness. Elena's heart was racing. Every rational part of her mind screamed warnings. Don't fall for your boss. Don't confuse gratitude with love. Don't risk everything for a man who could destroy your life with a phone call. But looking into Alexander's eyes, she didn't see the arrogant billionaire the world knew. She saw a man who'd built walls so high, he'd forgotten what connection felt like. Until now. I'm scared, she whispered. Of me? Of this. Of wanting something I've never imagined I could have. She squeezed his hand. Alexander, 2 weeks ago I was serving coffee to people who wouldn't remember my name. Now what am I to you? You're the woman who reminds me that power means nothing if you don't use it to lift others up. His free hand touched her cheek gently. You're the person I want to build something meaningful with. Not just a company, but a life. The space between them disappeared as Alexander leaned closer. Elena's breath caught as she realized he was going to kiss her, and that she wanted him to more than she'd ever wanted anything. Their lips met softly, tentatively, like a question being asked and answered simultaneously. But then Elena melted into him, and the kiss deepened with all the emotion they'd been holding back. Her longing for someone who truly saw her, his desperate need for genuine connection. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. Elena. Alexander whispered against her forehead. Whatever the board decides tomorrow, I want you to know something. You've already succeeded. You've proven that courage matters more than credentials, that integrity trumps influence. And you've proven that beneath all that arrogance is a man worth falling for, she replied softly. They sat together in the garden above the city, two people from impossible worlds who'd found something real in the space between ambition and vulnerability. Tomorrow would bring consequences they couldn't control. But tonight they had each other, and the knowledge that some connections transcend every barrier society tries to build. The truth behind Alexander's arrogance wasn't cruelty or indifference. It was the desperate loneliness of a man who'd forgotten that being powerful and being loved weren't mutually exclusive, until Elena Rodriguez taught him the difference. Elena arrived at Grayson Tower the next morning to find reporters camped outside the building. Ms. Rodriguez, how do you respond to claims you're unqualified? Is it true you're romantically involved with Alexander Grayson? What's your comment on the board's decision? Elena pushed through the crowd, her heart sinking. If reporters were here, the board's decision was already made. They were just waiting for the official announcement of her failure. In the elevator, she caught her reflection in the polished steel doors. The woman staring back looked different than the exhausted waitress who'd accidentally sent that email 2 weeks ago. This woman had fire in her eyes, steel in her spine. Win or lose, Elena Rodriguez was no longer invisible. Rebecca was waiting when the elevator opened, her expression unreadable. Elena, Mr. Grayson needs to see you immediately. Rebecca, I need you to know. Save it for him, Rebecca said, but her tone wasn't unkind. Conference room B, he's waiting. Elena walked through the halls one last time, past the offices where she'd spent 2 weeks learning to see herself differently. Employees avoided eye contact, confirming her suspicions. The corporate gossip network was faster than any official announcement. She found Alexander standing at the window of conference room B, his posture rigid with tension. Alexander? He turned, and Elena's breath caught. His face was a mask of barely controlled fury. The board voted, he said quietly. 11-1 against your appointment. Elena nodded, the confirmation hitting like a physical blow. Who was the one? Me. I was the only vote in favor of giving you the position. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry I embarrassed you. I'm sorry I wasted your time. I'm sorry I... Elena, stop. Alexander crossed to her, taking her hands in his. You have nothing to apologize for, but I need to tell you what happened after you left that boardroom yesterday. Elena braced herself for more humiliation. Blackstone spent 20 minutes explaining why hiring you would be corporate suicide. The other board members agreed. Too risky, too unconventional, too dangerous to their comfortable status quo. Alexander's jaw tightened. Then something interesting happened. What? My assistant brought in a stack of emails, 57 messages from customers who'd heard about your presentation through news coverage, each one sharing their own story of being treated poorly by our customer service department. Elena's eyes widened. Margaret Patterson from Queens, the woman you mentioned. She called the office directly. She spent 15 minutes telling my receptionist how no one from our company had ever talked about her like she mattered before. She said, "That young woman understands what it feels like to be ignored." Alexander pulled out his phone, scrolling to a message. Listen to this email. I'm a 70-year-old veteran who spent 3 hours on hold trying to get help with my account. When I heard about the waitress who wants to fix your customer service, I thought, maybe someone finally gets it. Hire her, or I'm taking my business elsewhere. Elena felt tears building in her eyes. Elena, by noon yesterday, we'd received over 300 similar messages. Customers demanding we hire the waitress who dared to call us out. The local news picked up the story. Hire. The waitress started trending. But the board still voted no, because they're terrified of change, because admitting you were right means admitting they've been wrong for years. Alexander's voice grew fierce. But here's what they don't understand. I don't need their permission to do what's right. Elena frowned. What do you mean? I mean I own 51% of this company. I mean their vote was advisory, not binding. Alexander smiled. The first genuine smile she'd seen from him all morning. I mean you're hired, Elena Rodriguez. Not as Director of Customer Experience, as Vice President of Customer Experience reporting directly to me. Elena's world tilted. Alexander, you can't. I can, and I did. Your salary is $300,000 a year. You have a full team reporting to you, and you have my complete authority to implement every change you proposed. The board will revolt. Let them. Blackstone and his allies can rage all they want. But Elena, our customers have spoken. They want someone who understands their frustration, who's lived their experience. Alexander cupped her face in his hands. They want you. Elena felt the magnitude of the moment crashing over her. Not just the job, though the salary would transform her life, but what it represented. Alexander Grayson, Billionaire CEO, had just bet his company's future on a waitress from Murphy's Diner. Why? She whispered. Why would you risk everything for me? Because you're not just transforming our customer service, you're transforming me. His thumb brushed away a tear she didn't realize had fallen. Because I love you, Elena Rodriguez. Not the successful executive you're becoming, but the woman who refused to let anyone make her feel small. Elena's heart swelled with emotion too powerful for words. Instead, she rose on her toes and kissed him. A kiss full of gratitude, love, and the breathless joy of dreams coming true against impossible odds. When they broke apart, Alexander's eyes were bright with unshed tears. There's one more thing, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I'm calling a press conference this afternoon. I want the whole city to know that Grayson Enterprises just hired the most qualified customer service executive in the country. Alexander, the reporters outside, will hear me say that character matters more than credentials, that experience serving others trumps degrees every time, and that any company lucky enough to have Elena Rodriguez's expertise should count their blessings. Elena laughed through her tears. You're going to cause a scandal. Good. Let them be scandalized by the radical idea that worth isn't measured by wealth or status, but by how you treat people when you think no one's watching. As Elena looked into the eyes of the man who'd seen her potential when no one else would, she realized something profound had happened. She wasn't just a waitress who'd gotten lucky. She wasn't charity case or corporate experiment. She was Elena Rodriguez, Vice President of Customer Experience, a woman who'd earned her place through courage, conviction, and the refusal to let anyone diminish her worth. The girl who'd served coffee while dreaming of something more had become the woman who would transform how an entire company treated its customers. Some might call it impossible. Elena Rodriguez called it Tuesday. Her stand in that boardroom hadn't just defined her career. It had defined her as someone who would never again let anyone make her feel invisible. And that, she realized, was worth more than any salary Alexander could offer. 6 months later, Elena Rodriguez stood in the same Murphy's diner where her journey had begun. But everything was different. She wasn't wearing her old black apron. Instead, she wore a tailored blazer and the quiet confidence of someone who'd found her place in the world. But she wasn't here as the vice president of customer experience at Grayson Enterprises. She was here as Elena, coming home to thank the people who'd believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. "Look at you," Maya said, sliding a cup of coffee across the counter. "VP Rodriguez, gracing us common folk with her presence." Elena laughed. "Don't start, you know I haven't changed." "Haven't you?" Maya's smile was warm. "Elena, 6 months ago, you were invisible in this city. Now you're the woman who revolutionized corporate customer service. The Harvard Business Review wrote about your transformation model. You've been invited to speak at conferences around the country." It was true. Elena's approach to customer service, treating people as human beings rather than problems to solve, had become a case study in business schools. Other companies were hiring consultants to implement the Rodriguez method. But more importantly, customer satisfaction at Grayson Enterprises had increased by 47%. Employee morale was at an all-time high. The company was more profitable than ever because happy customers became loyal customers. "Maya, success isn't what changed me," Elena said softly. "It was remembering that I was never actually invisible. I just needed someone to remind me that I mattered." The bell above the door chimed, and Alexander walked in, still managing to look like he owned the world, but now wearing it more lightly. "Mr. Billionaire," Maya called out, grinning. "The usual?" "Actually, I'm hoping Elena might serve me," Alexander said, his eyes never leaving Elena's face, "for old time's sake." Elena moved around the counter, grabbed the coffee pot, and approached his booth, the same one where she'd served countless customers who'd looked right through her. "What can I get you?" she asked, playing along. "Just coffee, but I'm hoping the service comes with conversation." Elena poured his coffee and slid into the booth across from him. "How was your day, customer?" "Productive. We launched the customer advocacy program you designed. 3 other companies want to license your training materials." Alexander reached across the table, taking her hand. "But that's not why I'm here." "Oh?" Alexander's expression grew serious, tender. "Elena, 6 months ago a mistake brought us together. But it wasn't really a mistake, was it? It was fate giving us exactly what we needed." Elena's heart began to race as Alexander pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. "You taught me that real success isn't measured in dollars or deals. It's measured in the lives we touch, the people we lift up, the love we build." He opened the box, revealing a diamond ring that caught the diner's fluorescent light like captured starlight. "Elena Rodriguez, will you marry me?" The diner fell silent. Maya dropped the dish she'd been washing. Even the ever-present cooking sounds from the kitchen stopped. Elena stared at the ring, then at Alexander, then back at the ring. This was happening in Murphy's diner, the place where she'd felt smallest. And somehow, it felt perfect. "Alexander," she whispered, tears building in her eyes. "Are you sure you want to marry a waitress?" "I want to marry the woman who reminded me that serving others is the highest calling." His voice was steady, certain. "I want to marry the person who taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be better." Elena looked around the diner, at Maya crying behind the counter, at the regular customers who'd watched her struggle and dream and finally soar. This place had shaped her, taught her resilience, shown her that dignity came from within, not from what others thought of you. "Yes," she said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, Alexander Grayson, I'll marry you." The diner erupted in cheers as Alexander slipped the ring onto her finger. Maya rushed over with champagne she'd apparently been hiding behind the counter, and suddenly Elena was surrounded by the chosen family that had carried her through the hardest years of her life. Her courage changed everything. But stories like this disappear if you don't save them. Subscribe before you lose access to these transformations. Later, as they walked hand in hand through the city streets, Elena marveled at how much had changed. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked Alexander. "Taking a chance on someone like me? Someone like you?" Alexander stopped walking, turning to face her. "Elena, you're the strongest person I know. You turned a typing mistake into a career transformation. You walked into a boardroom full of intimidating executives and made them question everything they believed about worth and qualification. I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite the fear." Alexander cupped her face in his hands. "You've changed not just my company, but how I see the world. How I see myself." As they continued walking, Elena thought about the journey that had brought them here. A late-night job application. A typo that changed everything. A billionaire who saw potential where others saw only limitations. But the real transformation hadn't been Elena becoming successful or Alexander becoming more human. It had been both of them learning that true worth wasn't measured by bank accounts or job titles, but by the courage to see beyond surface appearances, to fight for what's right, and to love someone for who they are, not what they represent. 6 months ago, Elena Rodriguez was a waitress invisible to the world. Today she was a woman who'd proven that greatness isn't born, it's chosen, one brave decision at a time. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, Elena Rodriguez would wake up as someone's fiancé, a successful executive, and most importantly, a woman who would never again let anyone make her feel like she didn't belong. Some love stories are about finding your prince. This one was about finding yourself and discovering that you were royalty all along.